Joe Biden is under fire this evening on comments he made about working alongside segregationist senators in the past.
Biden recalling his early Senate career, bringing up two segregationist senators, Herman Talmadge and James Eastland, who called African Americans an inferior race. "I was in a caucus with James O. Eastland," Biden said. "He never called me boy. He always called me son. At least there was some civility. We got things done. We didn't agree on much of anything. We got things done."
I think the two-party system, although my Democratic colleagues don't like me saying this, I think the two-party system is good for the South and good for the Negro, good for the black in the South. Other than the fact that they still call me boy, I think they've changed their mind a little bit.
Have we really analyzed the past of our leaders, or do we tend to ignore their flaws once they reach a certain level of power? It's a question we often sweep under the carpet, isn't it? We're quick to celebrate the victories, the speeches, the charisma. But what about the other side of the coin, the missteps, the controversial remarks, the questionable associations? Today, we're turning over that coin. We're peeling back the layers on a figure who's been at the forefront of American politics for decades. Joe Biden has a decades-long habit of making overtly racist remarks, taking discriminatory positions and cavorting with known racists. Things that would get anyone to his political right tossed out of polite society. But being on the left must make it okay. Just a few days ago, while lamenting the difficulty in convincing many Latinos and blacks to take the COVID vaccine, he committed a series of racially charged blunders that barely registered in the corporate media's consciousness. Biden white-splained that Latinos in America resist vaccinations because they're worried that they'll be vaccinated and deported. This statement makes the insane assumption that all Latinos present in this country are illegal aliens subject to expulsion. It never occurred to Biden that more than 60 million Latinos are actually American citizens, according to recent census figures. While insulting such a sizable segment of our population, Biden actually went further. He referred to this group of people as Latinx, which is a term invented by woke academics who objected to gender-specific words in the Spanish language. Just 3% of Latinos use Latinx to describe themselves, and less than a quarter have even heard of the term, according to the Pew Research Center. Many find it to be an offensive bastardization of the Spanish language. Here, Biden is almost certainly unaware of what he's saying and has simply repeated what a liberal on his staff has instructed him to say. But there are plenty of examples where Biden should not receive the benefit of the doubt. In the same breath as his Latinx comment, Biden lectured about the fears that blacks may have of the vaccine, attempting to point to historically shameful episodes when they were subjected to inhumane medical experiments. "They are used to being experimented on, the Tuskegee Airmen and others," Biden said. In this, he confused legendary World War II fighter pilots with a long, notorious governmental study of syphilis among black men, the Tuskegee experiment. It does not take much effort to imagine the media's reaction if Donald Trump had mangled so many racial issues in one press conference. Examples dating back to his campaign for president, and earlier, abound. On Charlemagne the God's popular morning radio show in May 2020, Biden infamously asserted to the largely black audience that if they were unsure of whether to vote for him or Trump, then you ain't black. Then, in August 2020, Biden told a gathering of black and Hispanic journalists that, unlike the African American community, with notable exceptions, the Latino community is an incredibly diverse community with incredibly different attitudes about different things. Taken together, these statements clearly suggest that Biden believes all black people think alike. In the same interview, responding to a question on whether he had taken a cognitive test, Biden angrily fired back with the suggestion that the black reporter was a drug addict. "That's like saying before you got in this program, you're take sick a test whether you're taking cocaine or not," Biden said. "What do you think, huh? Are you a junkie?" Put these words into Mitch McConnell's mouth and try to envision how long he'd be allowed to remain in the Senate, let alone in a leadership position. But Biden has been getting away with this for years. In 2010, he warmly eulogized Sam Robert Byrd, a former exalted Cyclops in the Ku Klux Klan, saying he was one of my mentors and that the Senate is a lesser place for his going. In 2007, he referred to Barack Obama as the first mainstream African American who's articulate and bright and clean. In 2006, he said, "You cannot go to a 7-Eleven or a Dunkin' Donuts unless you have a slight Indian accent." Way back in 1977, he said that forced busing to desegregate schools would cause his children to grow up in a racial jungle. Of course, he infamously worked with segregationist senators to oppose that mandatory busing, which decades later led to the strongest moment in Kamala Harris's campaign for president, when she blasted him as having personally impacted her as a young girl. And over the course of his entire career, he had kind words to say about staunchly segregationist senators. Any one of these statements or episodes would have been enough to sink the political career of any conservative in Washington, D.C., against whom tenuous accusations of racism are commonplace and occur almost daily. But Joe Biden, who has a lifetime of them, is now President of the United States. On some days and in some ways, it must be good to be on the left. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more insights. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.
Are you going to apologize like Cory Booker
Apologize
has called
for what?
Cory Booker's called for it.
Cory should apologize. He knows better. There's not a racist bone in my body. I've been involved in civil rights my whole career.
You cannot go to a 7-Eleven or a Dunkin' Donuts unless you have a slight Indian accent. I'm not joking.
And by the way, you know, I sit on the stand and it get hot. I got hairy legs that turn turn blonde in the sun, and the kids used to. So it's okay. Even call centers, which rushed overseas in the hundreds of thousands. How many times you get the call? I'd like to talk to you about your credit card. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. They're going to put you all back in chains. But I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black. But I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
Joe Biden is under fire this evening on comments he made about working alongside segregationist senators in the past.
Biden recalling his early Senate career, bringing up two segregationist senators, Herman Talmadge and James Eastland, who called African Americans an inferior race. I was in a caucus with James O. Eastland, Biden said. He never called me boy, he always called me son. At least there was some civility. We got things done. We didn't agree on much of anything. We got things done.
I think the two-party system, although my Democratic colleagues don't like me saying this, I think the two-party system is good for the South and good for the Negro, good for the black in the South. Other than the fact that they still call me boy, I think they've changed their mind a little bit.
They're going to put you all back in chains.
30 seconds or less. What kind of a chance would a northeastern liberal like Joe Biden stand in the South if you were running in Democratic primaries against Southerners like Mark Warner and John Edwards?
Better than anybody else. And you don't know my state. My state was a slave state. My state is a border state. My state is the 8th largest black population in the country. My state is anything from a northeast liberal
sort of mainstream African American, who is articulate and bright and clean and a nice looking guy. I mean, that's a storybook, man.
My son is Attorney General a year in Iraq, came back, and that's one of the things that he finds was most in need. When he was over there in Iraq for a year, people would come to him and talk about what was happening to them at home in terms of foreclosures, in terms of bad loans that were these Shylocks who took advantage of these women and men. Back from Mumbai to go meet with President Xi in China, I stopped in Singapore to meet with a guy named Lee Kuan Yew, who most foreign policy experts around the world say is the wisest man in the Orient. There's not a racist bone in my body. But I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black,